You're listening to Eat, Theatre, Sleep, Repeat, Blackpool Grand Theatre's podcast. Your fun-filled look behind the curtain. Get ready for incredible stories, backstage gossip, community highlights, and plenty of star power. Let's dive in.
Hello and welcome to Eat, Theatre, Sleep, Repeat. Today, my guest is co-founder and artistic director Gary Clarke of the Gary Clarke Company, which will bring the third piece of a trilogy, Detention, to the Blackpool Grand Theatre in October. Gary, firstly, how are you?
Hello, I'm very well. It's lovely to be back here in Blackpool. I love it.
So you're no stranger to Blackpool. Gary, just tell us a bit about Detention and the thinking behind it and you know, why you wanted to bring it here to Blackpool.
So Detention is a third and final part of a trilogy of dance works that I've been creating over the last 10 years. The first piece I created was a piece called Coal, which looked at the 1984 British miners' strike, which I personally was very, very connected to as a young boy. I'm from a mining village called Grimethorpe in Barnsley, so the miners' strike was very, very kind of profound in my life, and I wanted to create a piece of work to kind of honour that. I then created a work called Wasteland, which looked at the death of industrial Britain and then the rise of the UK rave culture under Thatcherism, and what happens to a generation after all the coal mines have closed down, and looking at the illegal rave culture and what that did to that next generation. And then I was compelled to do a third and final work, and I started to look at Britain in the 80s and 90s under Margaret Thatcher's government, and I came across Section 28, which in a nutshell was a law that was brought in 1988 which prohibited the promotion of homosexuality, and it stayed in law for 15 years, and it had a huge effect on the LGBTQ plus community. And I was a young gay man growing up in the 1980s under Section 28, and I started to understand why my upbringing was the way it was. There was a lot of homophobia, there was no representation, there was a lot of bullying, and it was because of Section 28. This law was also hidden. It was a hidden legislation. Not many people knew about it. And I'm interested in telling political stories through dance and dance theatre. And it felt like a good opportunity to shine a light on a legislation that had a massive impact on yet another marginalised community. So it kind of follows a thread through from Coal, Wasteland and Detention. I guess what unites all three pieces is Margaret Thatcher's Britain and how various different communities have had to kind of fight for their rights and their existence. And there's a kind of autobiographical theme that kind of threads all three pieces together, because I was personally affected by the miners' strike, the rave community, and Section 28. So my own personal kind of story and life is kind of embedded in the blood and the heart of the works.
So I'm assuming you sat down and sort of said, I'm going to tell this story over three pieces, or was it more of a, as you started to get into the, you know, the likes of Waste, Coal, did that sort of come into place then?
Yeah, so when I was making Coal, I knew that there was a real thirst for audiences, for working class storytelling in dance. Not many people were doing that at the time, and being very explicit about that as well, kind of creating quite strong narratives with dance to tell working class stories. Not just working class stories, but stories that are built on truth and real situations that real people have been through in society. People really connected with that as audiences, and I knew that I'd kind of found a gap. And that felt really exciting, especially in the contemporary dance world, which is what I work in. No one was kind of doing that. So it kind of set me on this path to see what else I could do with working class stories. And my brother, actually, who was an ex-raver of the time, said to me after he saw Coal, the show, the story's not over. You need to do a sequel. What about us? What about our generation that we lived through? So I started off on a sequel, which became Wasteland. And then I thought, what the hell, let's do a trilogy, let's finish it off. But I guess for me, like, if Coal was for my grandparents and my parents and Wasteland was for my brother, Detention was kind of my story, being an openly gay man, but kind of growing up in a mining village in the 80s as someone that's gay. You know, it wasn't normal to be gay. You were never encouraged to kind of explore your sexuality or come out. So Detention is kind of... It feels like my story. So I think each piece has kind of led on from the piece that I've kind of gone before. What I'll do after Detention, I've got no idea.
You're backstage with Eat, Theatre, Sleep, Repeat. Make sure you hit follow.
And how challenging is it for you to sort of tell a story through dance that is this sort of like political piece?
Dance is a really exciting form to work with because it's so expressive and it uses the human body, which we're all connected to actually tell that story. I guess I use the term dance theatre. We don't just use pure movement. We really rely heavily on sound and video projection, costume, lighting, words to tell the story. But movement is right at the heart of it, and choreography. And we manage to kind of evoke emotion and story through the body. I'm really interested in how the body can tell stories and kind of capture feeling. So we don't just make pictures with our physicality. It's very much embedded in how things feel. I want the audience to not only walk out of our shows being informed about politics and people, but actually feel what those people went through so they can kind of empathize and feel wholeheartedly with full emotion these communities that we're exploring. And the body is a fantastic tool for expression. You know, the minute that we're born into this world, we're moving. Movement is a very expressive form that we all can connect to. And what I really enjoy about the work that we create as a company is that we break preconceptions about what dance can be and what contemporary dance can be and how it can convey stories. I think we're quite good at that. You know, we're very audience driven, so we're always looking and observing how audiences are perceiving what we're doing physically and making sure that it's not abstract or they're not leaving feeling confused, which sometimes I think a lot of contemporary dance can do to audiences. So our audiences are right at the forefront of when we're creating work through our bodies and making sure that it resonates. And we work a lot with gesture and natural movement and composition and space. I do a lot of kind of human observations. We look at a lot of research of real people in real situations, and we try and draw movement out from that. So it comes from a real source. It's not like an abstract form to begin with. It comes from a place of authenticity. And then we can start to kind of play with it. So that's really important for us, is how we represent the body on stage.
And of course, it's already been to a few venues now. What has reaction been like to Detention so far?
The reaction to the show so far has been really overwhelming. We've had fantastic audiences up and down the country so far. What's been remarkable is that we've seen a real kind of wide range of people coming into the theatre. So people that were there at the time, so people that are kind of 40 plus, but also a lot of the younger LGBT communities of today coming to see the show and being kind of educated, informed on something that happened 40 years ago, which still has the scars today, and collaborating and talking with and having conversations with other generations. It's actually creating a platform for debate and conversation. You know, and audiences are coming out questioning, have we moved forward? Has things changed? What is different now? So the show is acting as a kind of catalyst for debate and discussion. And no one actually really talks about the show afterwards. They're all talking about, you know, the state of the country, but also the state of the world today, and how, as a community, the LGBT community, if we're still facing homophobia, if we're still under the iron fist of Thatcherism, lots of great conversations are coming out. We've also got, you know, a lot of our core audiences coming to see our show as well, and our Wasteland audiences. So people are coming back to see the trilogy, you know, of what we've done next. So a real mix of people, but the response has been incredible. Everyone is, you know, coming out really reflective, angry, emotional, enlightened, you know, with brilliant things to say. I mean, people are blown away by what we've done with the show, and I'm just thrilled that it's landed, because I think when you deal with social and political history, you've got to get it right. And I think that's why I do a lot of research, is to make sure that what we're doing is accurate. But to make all of that information land with that kind of emotional punch and rigour and creativity is something that I really strive for. So I'm really thrilled that audiences are loving the show.
What is it? I'm dead curious about this, because obviously you're very well associated here with the Blackpool Grand Theatre. What is it about Blackpool and what is it about the Grand Theatre that keeps you coming back?
Well, I've got a personal connection to Blackpool because my grandma, who was 95 when she passed away, came here in the 1970s for the ballroom dancing. So, dancing is kind of in my family. My mum's mum, Monica Greenhill, lived up North Shore. So I've been coming to Blackpool since I was born, and always known that dance was a big part of the town. And of course, my grandma, she was a ballroom dancer at all the famous ballrooms in Blackpool, including the Tower Ballroom. And so the Grand is somewhere where I used to frequent to come and see shows, and I've known of the Grand since I was, knee high. And always kind of felt like the Grand was this amazing, beautiful theatre. Never thought as a child I would ever be performing here. I performed here with a few companies as a dancer, but I never thought I'd have my name at the front of the theatre. So my producer, Annabelle Dunbar, worked really hard to try and get some work here, and they programmed Cole. Which was amazing. It was brilliant, and Blackpool audiences really connected to it because, again, I'm from a town, a working class town myself, so there's some real strong parallels between my work and Blackpool as a historical seaside town. So it was just a really strong connection, and I'm very interested in my work going to places that might not necessarily have dance. I think London can be quite a hot spot for a lot of contemporary dance, whereas I'm interested in kind of going out into the kind of these communities that might have been hard hit by something like Thatcherism, Blackpool being one of them, to tell these stories. So for me, I'm really passionate about us going to places like Blackpool, as well as the personal connection. And I also love the town. I think there's a rich history in dance in Blackpool, and so to kind of add to that legacy and to be part of that landscape and to be part of that world as Gary Clarke Company, it's something I'm really, really proud of, and hope that this relationship with the company and Blackpool Grand continue for many more years.
Welcome to your favourite podcast, Eat, Theatre, Sleep, Repeat.
And it's not just putting on, things like Cold Wasteland and Detention. You've done other stuff with the Grand Theatre. Just talk to us a bit about Pride in Motion back in February and what that piece was.
So Pride in Motion started off as an idea that I had way back when I was making Detention, and the idea was to tour a collection of 50 portraits of people who'd all been affected by Section 28. And this photography exhibition would tour alongside the live show. And each one of these portraits that would be taken by photographer David Seven would have like a personal statement attached to it, linked to Section 28. So it was almost like a kind of archive visual product, in a way, an artistic kind of resource that would sit alongside the live show, and that would tour. COVID happened, so we couldn't do that, and our plans changed dramatically. But Adam Knight, who is currently at the Grand as CEO, really liked this idea of a kind of an LGBT photography project, and we started a conversation about what would it look like if we were to create a project for local people in Blackpool leading up to a photography exhibition. So we had many conversations around what that might look like, and I just got really excited and started to design not just a photography project, but a project that had lots of other artistic elements to it. So the participants weren't just for say like models, but they would do creative writing workshop, they would do movement workshops, confidence building, photography workshops. They would go and see various different shows. They'd be inspired by different artists. They would be encouraged to discuss and debate political subject matters. So really kind of getting into the skin of the subject matters surrounding detention. But through lots of different artistic mediums. So the project is still ongoing, and it straddles 2 years. And in February, we had a launch. So all participants had their photograph taken by David Seven. They did their own statement. And I also created a performance piece with them, a live performance piece, with dance at the heart of it, that they performed before the unveiling of their pictures. And it was incredible. They did amazing. They're such an incredible group of people, really special, so diverse, so different. Again, a wide range of ages in the room. So we're getting different generations kind of collaborating and having these conversations. And some of them will also be featuring in Detention, the live show. So that's a really nice kind of element too. So it's been an incredible project, and something that I know where both organisations are really, really proud of, and we're looking at ways of how we can continue that relationship into the future.
Book your tickets now at blackpoolgrand.co.uk.
Am I right in thinking that they hadn't seen their illustrations, their pictures, until that moment that they were revealed on stage?
Yeah, so we went out into Blackpool. They all individually went into Blackpool with photographer David Seven, and over 3 days we took these images. And they had to choose their own outfits and their own locations, but they didn't actually see their image. Neither did they see anybody else's image. We purposefully kept it a secret. And then as part of the live performance piece, we did a public unveiling. So all the pictures were covered over when the audience came into the theatre. They performed at the very end of the performance piece. On a cue, they all pulled off this cloth, and the pictures were huge. They were kind of like 1 metre by 1 metre. So the kind of scale of them and seeing themselves on print. And David's a wonderful photographer. He's such a great person at kind of capturing personality. So they were faced with their own image of pride. And also then they had an opportunity to see the collection as a whole. So as an audience, we witnessed them seeing the collection for the first time, which was amazing because there were choreography within the viewing of them. They were hugging each other and crying and pointing, and I played some classical music over the top. So it almost kind of created this new kind of level of choreography that was never planned for, which was really quite beautiful. And I guess for me, what was really special about Pride in Motion in particular was it was in Blackpool where Margaret Thatcher made her famous speech about Section 28, which ushered in the law pretty quickly. It's a very famous speech. She did it at the Winter Gardens in Blackpool in 1988. So Pride in Motion was a direct pushback against that statement. So it's about reclaiming Blackpool as a safe queer space for LGBT people.
And just finally, what is coming up for you beyond making Detention? Is there anything in the pipeline? Is there anything that you're working on? Do you have any plans? Are you just going for a bit of a lie down?
We need a bit of a break because it's been quite an intense period. So we're going to take some time. We're going to reflect, and then there is some exciting news coming. But I'm not going to say anything too soon. But yeah, we might be bringing back an old piece.
Wow, well, that's a great place to leave it on. Wanting more. After all, thank you so much, Gary.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you coming on. And Detention arrives at Blackpool Grand Theatre on Wednesday the 8th to Thursday the 9th of October 2025. And you can still book your seats by heading to blackpoolgrand.co.uk or call box office 01253 290 190.
That's a wrap on Eat, Theatre, Sleep, Repeat. Thanks for joining us at Blackpool Grand Theatre. And don't forget to like, most definitely follow, and join us again. Until next time, stay fabulous.